What If spoiler-free review. And yeah, let's dive right. Yes, couple of disclaimers. This was a show that I really loved. There's not a single episode that I don't love, though I don't love them all quite equally. There will only be spoilers for the MCU leading up to right before the first episode of this aired, not for anything in this show or anything that came out after that first episode aired. The show, let's see, I think it's rated around 12 plus. Certainly, this video will not go above that age rating. So there's a lot of fun to be had with this show, and I think they did a pretty good job delivering on that. You know, they did 3 seasons, and I never felt like they ran out of fun new concepts to explore. Not all of them were explored quite equally well. I personally think they did a good job, you know, with a mix of the ones that are genuinely like stuff that makes you really think and or feel, and stuff that's just kind of fun, you know. Some people really dislike the first episode. I don't think I'm gonna go into too much detail about it, but suffice it to say, it is not as different from the MCU movie that it most takes inspiration from as quite a few later episodes. I see it as a proof of concept, basically just reassuring the normies, you know, don't worry, there's gonna be stuff on this show that's for you. Like, even just the multiverse, the, you know, when this first came out, people weren't as, when the first episode aired, people weren't as fed up with the multiverse as apparently a lot of people are today. Certainly there's a number of people who are. Not sure if it's the majority. But even so, it is still quite the ask of the audience. Even if you've already agreed you're willing to watch something that's based on a comic book, multiverse, you know, it gets pretty out there. Even the second episode gets much more free of, you know, yeah, I 100% understand. Some people saw that first episode and thought, oh, is this really just going to be we're redoing movies, but with something of a twist? And I will grant there's a lot, not all, but a lot about that first episode that is that. That is not something that they just do for every episode. I would have found it pretty boring if they did keep that up. I love that first episode, but if they had just done that, you know, there's almost 30 episodes across the 3 seasons, so that would have gotten really, really old. But I think that might be just right. Just briefly, you know, the what if concept is basically at some point, you know, they start with the MCU, but the point in the timeline they start varies wildly, and there is one major decision, one aspect that is incredibly different from the actual MCU, and then we see how that decision kind of changes everything, the reverberations. And in that first episode, again, as just like proof of concept, just reassuring people who don't want to get too deep into it, we see what happens exactly. We see the decision being made and follow very close, you know, yeah, closely what are the immediate results of this decision. In later episodes, they do start doing a thing where they'll tell you, okay, this was the decision made that caused a diverging timeline, but we're going to pick up a while after, which again gives them somewhat more freedom. And yeah, this is by far the MCU, at least Disney Plus show, that has the most freedom and goes in the most different directions stylistically, and they tend to be smart about it and do just like an episode that is one thing, and then in a later episode they'll do an episode that's completely another thing, rather than trying to mix and match too much within a specific episode. This one has a lot less like impact and implications, and that's not really a spoiler. It almost goes without saying, because this really is just a bunch of stories. There is some there are things that come back up later. I won't give away what, but basically the core conceit here is that every episode we're watching is a different universe from not necessarily every single episode that, of the show, always the MCU, but certainly most episodes of this show. That is part of the appeal. If I understand correctly, I have to admit, I don't think I have read What If comics, but if I understand correctly, those are all 100% separate from each other. There's no continuity at all. There is a little continuity here, but it is really not one where, most of the MCU, I would say, if you're going to, I'm not one of those people who say you have to watch everything, MCU or otherwise, but there are certain storylines that, they'll dip in and out over the course of the MCU, and if you want to get the full effect of that, you will have to, or I would urge that you watch every entry, yeah. With this, that's much less, of a thing, and certainly if you're not super invested in any story that is specific to this show, there's still time. Obviously, it is possible for stuff to come up later, but it's not a spoiler to say there's not a huge amount of it. And like, I know people who watched, MCU movies but not MCU shows. They were not confused by any, let's keep it vague, anything that was in one of the movies that related to this show, if hypothetically, when I record this video, something has come out, And yeah, certainly the show could feel less substantial, than a lot of other MCU stuff. This is it's possible that this one genuinely won't have anything that's introduced on this show actually pop up. This was not the first time that the multiverse, for example, yeah, that was already a thing. This was just an exploration of it. But I think that, yeah, if there was one thing, if you're not super in love with like the overall concept here, yeah, you can pretty much skip this one. The other MCU Disney Plus shows, there's stuff that has or will soon, as of recording this, for each of the shows that have come out, have started airing at least. There's, yeah, pays off in the movies and or other Disney Plus shows, But there are really interesting ideas at play here, and a lot of episodes will make you really, will really engage you just within the one episode, at least. And I think, but yeah, this is very much one. If it feels like they did sit down and say, let's make an MCU thing where genuinely, you can watch one episode of this or zero, you can watch all, anything in between, and you will basically be fine. There's, other MCU Disney Plus shows that I would really not say that about. I pretty much, yeah, like hypothetically, if you, for some reason, wanted to start by watching a season finale, you'd be fine with this show. I would not recommend it for any other Disney Plus MCU show. I think that pretty much covers... Yeah, there's a lot of different genres and, both some, like, only slightly nerdy genres, but also some ideas that are very deep in, like, nerd stuff. And yeah, there is a little bit of a mixed, some of the acting is a little bit mixed, because some of the actors, they brought in the people who do the live action MCU, and, to be clear, like, justice for voice actors, I do think primarily voice acting work should go to voice actors. They work for a very long time, have to take any work they can get, rather than big Hollywood names who can pick and choose. I do appreciate the consistency. It seems like when they could, they went for using the person who who performed the character in live action as well. But there were definitely some very positive surprises. I was a little bit worried that a lot of them were going to be giving kind of meh performances on account of not being voice actors. That's something. There's some incredible live action actors out there who are just not, I don't want to say not good, but the performances that they end up delivering, and this is often, there's various factors, but yeah, they did what they could here. And let's see. Right. There's a lot of great character moments in all of the episodes. And in some of the episodes, the characters are very different from the way they are in the movies. And it's almost always interesting in the show. And yeah, I don't think I can really point to anything that a major character does in an episode that legitimately feels like something that character, at the very least that episode's version of that character, simply would not do. It has a very strong sense of who the characters are. It's one of the greatest strengths of the show. One of my biggest issues is the broad acting performances that are sometimes, thankfully it's not everywhere in the show, but there are some of those. And I will say, it doesn't seem like it was just actors goofing off and, like, Marvel Animation Studios were just like, okay, whatever. It was, the animation fits when the voice acting is broad, so someone working on the show really felt that at least some of the time it should be broad. And another thing, there definitely is an issue where this show, like other recent Marvel, I think it did start right after Endgame. They started subverting things that had happened in earlier MCU entries, I don't mind that they subvert, but they happen to choose some of the most emotionally engaging moments and some things that really, yeah, where it just feels like, this is something that you should not be kind of like undermining the emotion of. This is something that, you can just let the, what's the word? Just let this land. I think, was it, I think it was from the start of Phase 2 that they started doing it within the individual movies, but after Endgame that they started doing it between. I don't know, I guess maybe there is some stuff even in certainly the Avengers, that first Avengers, where they'll undermine something that happened in earlier. But, you know, I would argue it didn't start to get really, like, bad until much more recently. It didn't ruin a single episode for me, but there were a few times where it bothered me. And yeah, I think that does cover everything. So yeah, let's see, what do we have? Oh, right, yes. So yeah, whether we're talking the season opener, the season finale, or the overall season, for all three seasons, just really great. And yeah, I think I'm just really quickly gonna mentally rearrange the, yeah, um, well, I guess, yeah, I think that, yes, so, yes, my updated rankings of all of the, every Disney Plus MCU show, worst to best. And keep in mind, I love all of them. They're all amazing. I'm ranking how much I love them, not whether or not I love them all. If we're talking the overall show or season, worst to best, in my opinion. Loki Season 1, What If Season 1, Secret Invasion, What If Season 2, What If Season 3, Hawkeye, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki Season 2, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, Echo, Agatha, and WandaVision. The finale, Secret Invasion, What If Season 3, Hawkeye, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Echo, Loki Season 2, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, Agatha, and WandaVision. And the pilot, What If Loki, Echo, Hawkeye, Secret Invasion, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Moon Knight, Agatha, Ms. Marvel, and WandaVision. And yeah, let's see if the... right, yes. If you want my spoilery thoughts on individual episodes, the link to the playlist of the videos I've done of thoughts on MCU. Yeah, how do I phrase this? It doesn't have every single video I've done that's spoilers for something MCU. There are some shows where there's just so many episodes that I just link to the first video I do, and that video has a link to a playlist of the rest of the episodes of that show. But if I recall correctly, this one is, all of them are on that main playlist. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching as I enjoyed watching and recording. And yeah, hope to see you soon on something else. that I record.